Hi, hello, I'm Victoria and I'm absolutely obsessed with knitting. So naturally, I have way too many knitting patterns saved on Ravelry. And today I thought I'd chat to you about 15 sweater patterns that I'm absolutely dying to make. The first pattern I want to chat to you about is one that I absolutely fell in love with as soon as I saw it on Instagram, and it is actually an unreleased pattern. It's currently in testing. However, it does have a slipover version that is also equally stunning. I'm going to base all of my information on the slipover version of the pattern. However, I think the actual blouse slash sweater is relatively similar. And this pattern is the obsidian blouse, or obsidian slipover, by Sophia Scottford or Knitting Siri on Instagram. This is a relatively simple v-neck stockinette jumper knitted on 5mm needles. However, the thing that really drew me to it is the bow made out of mohair that it has at the top of the v-neck, so it turned into like a keyhole opening rather than a typical v-neck. The sleeves on the blouse are quite wide. I think they're bell-shaped or at least straight, and that's also a really stunning feature of this pattern. I'm not that keen on those type of sleeves in terms of wear, but I do really love the way they look, so I think I would probably make it in this and perhaps sacrifice the usability of this pattern, but I do think it's so stunning that I'm just dying to make this one. And I think this isn't even just an idea at this point, it is a plan. As soon as this pattern is released, I'm absolutely making it. The slipover has 6 sizes, which isn't entirely size inclusive, but I do think it is a wider range than some larger designers, and this is quite a small designer. I think the slipover pattern only has like 40 saves on Ravelry, or 40 projects on Ravelry. The bust circumference for the final garments ranges from 92 to 128 centimeters. I think I would knit this a size smaller than suggested in the pattern because I feel like it would look a lot nicer on me, slightly more tight fitting than just boxy, and I feel like it would really complement the girly aesthetic that the bow adds to it. The suggested yarn for this pattern is a sport weight held with a lace weight, and the yarn in the pattern is Isia tweed held with Isia soft silk mohair. I think I would perhaps consider using the Isia tweed because it is quite a interesting looking yarn and I've never knit with it before, and I would probably go for the colour topaz. I'm leaning perhaps more towards using Drops Flora in the colour amethyst and holding that with Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in the colour dusty artichoke purple. I feel like it would look so stunning. I'm really into like pinks and purples at the moment. This, if you would believe, is actually a purple grey yarn. I know it does look very grey, but is a purpley kind of grey. So I feel like the amethyst colourway with the artichoke purple would look like a really stunning, slightly more saturated than this purpley pinkish greyish yarn. I think it would complement the pattern so well. I was also thinking of using Drops Flora in the colour 05 dark grey and holding it with Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair either in the colour Midnight or Thundercloud to go for more of a darker grey version of this pattern, just like the picture on Instagram, because I feel like it would look really cute that way as well. And I feel like you could wear like a darker top underneath as well to peek out through the keyhole opening, and that would look really cute. I think I'm leaning towards the pinkish purple version, but I would honestly love the 3 colorways of this that I've suggested, but unfortunately I do not have time to knit quite so many sweaters in the same pattern. It is a little bit of a shame that this pattern is a sport weight held with a lace weight, because I really wanted to knit this in Knitting for Olive merino and mohair held together, because I feel like it would look absolutely beautiful and just so ethereal in the dusty rose colorway by Knitting for Olive. It's just such a stunning colour. I've got a cardigan knitted in the merino held together, and I'm just so in love with that colour that I feel like having a jumper with like a little bow would just be so, so cute. I feel like maybe I would knit it off gauge, but I feel like I'm leaning towards the drops flora and amethyst, just for slightly different colorway and maybe not struggling with the gauge. Though one issue with the flora is that it does have opaque and I tend to find it quite itchy, and I do have a little bit of a funny reaction to it. But I have made a cardigan in drops flora and their drops kid silk. I do wear it very often. I do find it a little bit unbearable sometimes when I get too warm, but I do end up wearing it like pretty much daily anyway, so maybe it wouldn't be that much of an issue. The next pattern that I think is just so stunning is the heart chain sweater by From Mayo. My friend Anne-Sophie actually made this recently and she has finally finished her version of it, and I'm just dying to make one as well because it's just so stunning. She made hers in Folklana Peruvian, held with, I think, knitting for olive soft silk mohair, but I think I'm leaning more towards holding just like one yarn without mohair, because I do find that I really like cabled sweaters just without mohair, because I find them a lot more easy to throw on, and sometimes mohair is a little bit more of an effort to wear, because it does get everywhere, and I find that like no mohair sweaters are probably a little bit more pleasant to wear. This is a really, really beautiful all over cabled sweater. It's quite oversized. Unfortunately, it doesn't have too many sizes. It has from small to 2XL, which yeah, is not a great size range. The heart chain sweater ranges from 104 to 128 centimeters of the final bust circumference, which yeah, is not very big at all. It is a Korean designer, so I feel like that is kind of understandable, but I feel like if more people knit this sweater, the designer is more likely to release more sizes, at least hopefully. So I thought I'd chat about it as well, and I'm honestly planning to knit this anyway, so I thought I would chat to you guys about it now. It is a drop shoulder. It's very, very chunky. It features so many different cable designs. The main feature of this pattern is the heart-shaped cable going down across here, and I feel like it just adds so much like girly pop energy to like a typical Aran jumper, because it really reminds me of like the Moby sweater by Petite Knit, which has been like popular for several years now, and I was actually dying to knit that one as well, but there was something holding me back, and I feel like this pattern is just such a stunning alternative to that. I just think it's just a lot more girly, and it's just so like chunky, and I feel like it would be so cozy to wear. I think Anne-Sophie made the right call in knitting this in a pink. I saw another project from Ravelry by someone who knit this in just Cascade 220 held single without a mohair, which is slightly off gauge, so I feel like I would definitely have to swatch for that. There are several colorways that I want to make this in, so I feel like I could do with a little bit of help from you guys. I would love your suggestions on what you think would suit me the most. My primary ideas are Lepidolite Heather 1007, which is like a pinkish purple. It kind of reminds me of the artichoke purple by Knitting for Olive, but it does have like specks of various different colors, so it's like a bit more heathered. Another version is their Storm Cloud Heather, which is a blue version of that, but I think I'm leaning more towards the pinkish purples because I feel like it would really suit the heart cables a lot more, and I feel like it would be a really cute Valentine's Day sweater as well. I feel like if I started it now, it would perhaps be done by Valentine's Day. Another version, which I actually saw on Ravelry, is the 1039 Hlebrus Heather, and I feel like I'm leaning the most towards that because it's just pink but with specks of blue and purple, and I think it looks so, so stunning. It's quite desaturated but not that dusty, so it would be like a really nice pop of pink in my wardrobe. And the last two colorways are the Sweet Pea Heather and Iridescence, which are also like these pinkish purple. They've just got slightly different like other colored strands woven into them, spun with. Yeah, I don't think it's woven because it's not a woven yarn. Spun with different coloured threads within them, and I feel like it just looks so beautiful. So yeah, I'm really struggling to make a choice between all of those colours because I think they're just so stunning. If I couldn't meet gauge on just that yarn held single, I think I could hold knitting for all of soft silk mohair in the colour artichoke purple with either of those colours, and it would still work really, really well. The next pattern is actually a very simple mock neck drop shoulder sweater, and this is the Odelia sweater by Gregoria Fibers. It's quite an underrated pattern. I think it's got only 17 projects on Ravelry somehow, but I think it just looks so stunning. I really love the long rib on the cuffs of it, and it's just got this really beautiful ribbed mock neck with like a beautiful braid below the mock neck. I feel like I would actually swap the rib on this to 1x1 twisted rib rather than just like a normal rib, because I feel like it would look really, really cute. This is a really chunky sweater. It's knitted on 4mm needles but in Aran weight yarn, so I feel like it might be quite a quick-ish knit, but not as quick as like a 6mm needle knit. I think it just is such a stunning pattern. The only thing about it is I think I would probably size down again because it is very, very oversized, and I perhaps don't look so great in these like mahoosive sweaters because I do have quite broad shoulders, but I do feel like it would still look really, really good. The Odelia sweater is quite size inclusive, I would say. It's got 8 sizes ranging from a bust circumference from 80 to 140 centimeters, not the final bust circumference but actual bust circumference of the person that would wear the sweater. And I feel like with the roominess of this design, I feel like you could fit even more like sizes within it. I think it would look like beautiful with like different fits as well on pretty much anyone. Adorable. And I don't know why more people haven't knit this. I would love to make this in Gepard Woolia in the colour 590 charcoal. It's very similar to the colour used in the pattern photos. It's just like this very dark grey, almost black colour. I think the other version of the name of it is anthracite, and it's definitely an anthracite or a charcoal. It's got like a slightly bluish hue to it, but it's definitely a grey because they do have like a navy version of it this colour. And this yarn actually really interests me because it can be knit either as a DK weight or an Aran weight yarn. I think it's quite a lightweight, but it fluffs up a lot, so that's why you can knit it on like larger needles, and I feel like it would be absolutely perfect for this project. Option number 2 is knitting this in Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool in the colour Old Rose 227. I feel like that would make it a lot more girly and like a pop of colour, but I feel like if I knit the heart chain sweater in a pink, then I probably would have to knit this in like a darker like grey black colour. The Filcolana Peruvian is very similar to a merino, but it's a little bit more toothy. I actually made a cardigan in that yarn in the colour lavender grey melange, and I do really, really love that yarn. It's more of a worsted weight than a DK. I think it is truly a worsted weight. I feel like this might be a little bit off gauge, but I do feel like the gauge of this sweater is quite odd anyway, so yeah, I wouldn't mind knitting it off gauge because of the roominess of the sweater. I feel like it would be fine either way. The next pattern that has been on my radar for several years now, and I've just been dying to make it, but I'm a little bit intimidated by the cables and like by the complexity of this sweater, though it doesn't actually have that much cabling on it. This is the Waffle Loop sweater by Other Loops. It's like a really oversized cabled sweater with like a waffle texture. The Waffle Loop sweater is such a clever design because it is a drop shoulder and the waffle texture is like all over the top and the sleeves. However, the sleeves have these really beautiful decreases along them that are like incorporated into the design. Normally like decreases on sleeves are like hidden underneath on the inside of the sleeve, but these ones are actually at the top, and it just looks so stunning. And I feel like the details on this sweater are just unmatched. They're so beautiful. The one thing I would actually modify within this pattern is their collar, because the original version has like a folded turtleneck type collar, but I think I would just do a folded crew neck instead, because I feel like it would really balance out the like chunky fit of this sweater. I can't lie, this pattern is totally not size inclusive. It's got a whopping 3 sizes and they're all quite oversized. It's not great on either end. I feel like you have to be kind of in the middle looking for a specific silhouette to enjoy this design. Nonetheless, it is a really beautiful sweater and I would love to make it anyway. It just really sucks that Other Loops hasn't released more sizes, since she is like a bit of a larger designer. She's not massive like petite knit, but she does have quite a large reach. This has only 147 projects on Ravelry, but I mean, 3 sizes. I'm not surprised because a lot of people can't actually knit this sweater, which is just very annoying. I would love to knit this in Gepard Puralana in the colour 106 Rose Grey, held together with their kid setter in the colour Magnolia Flowers. And I think it's like this grey but slightly purple grey colour. I'm slightly worried that it's a little bit too light and a little bit too bright. On Ravelry it does look very grey, but on like Loop London website it looks very warm toned and beigey kind of coloured, so I would have to see this colour in person before I actually make this sweater. The next pattern on my list is the aoide sweater by Sari Nordland, and it's this absolutely stunning, again, drop shoulder. I feel like this video is really drop shoulder heavy, but I think I've been really leaning towards those kind of sweaters recently, and I feel like they fit my body proportions really, really well. I think they also look quite store-bought, which a lot of people lean towards because it just makes it look very polished and like not quite as handmade, so I feel like they end up looking a lot more impressive with the like techniques that you would use in handmade knitting rather than machine knitting combined with the silhouette. But anyway, this sweater features these really cool like zigzaggy cables with cables within them along the body, and a lot of seed stitch and some cables along the sleeves. It's just a really stunning and like interesting design which I've not really seen anyone else make. I absolutely fell in love with this design. I think it just looks so beautiful. I would love to make one of it sometime in the future. I'm quite overwhelmed by the idea of this project though, because the complexity of the cables just looks very difficult, and I feel like it would take me a really long time to make this, so perhaps I should start now to maybe have it finished in a few years. Who knows how long this will take me. But yeah, this sweater is just so stunning. I'm not 100% sure on the fit on Sari because she tends to make her sweaters a little bit more fitted, which I'm kind of like in between. I like a slightly in between of a fitted and an oversized sweater. This sweater comes in 9 sizes ranging from 102 to 180 centimeters, which makes it relatively size inclusive. This is a final bust measurement rather than the actual like person bust measurement, and I feel like you could modify like the fit of this pattern to fit you best. Sari does say to like try it on and see how it fits you as you're knitting it, so I feel like that's also making it a lot more like suited to your own body rather than just a specific look. The one thing I would modify about this sweater is the sleeves, because I feel like they're a little bit too tight fitting for my liking. I would probably pick up like some more stitches and maybe like add a little bit of moss stitch to just make them a little bit wider, and perhaps I would turn them into balloon sleeves. That would kind of look quite cute with this design, though maybe I would like to make them like the tapered sleeve just to make it look a little bit more like an Aran sweater. Yeah, I'm leaning to both of these ideas. I feel like they both would look really cute. The suggested yarn for this pattern is the Sandnes pig and held together with knitting for all of soft silk mohair, and I think I would go for this yarn combo because I've never tried the pigant, but I've heard that it's just like a woolly slightly toothy yarn, but not too scratchy, and I feel like the knitting for all of mohair would really balance that out and make it just such a little cozy sweater. I think I would go for the colour 6572 in the pigant, and I would hold it together with the Dusty Petroleum Blue and the Knitting for Olive Soft Silk Mohair, because they're like both slightly dusty desaturated blues, leaning towards a navy but in between a blue and a navy, and I feel like it would just look so beautiful. I'm actually knitting a sweater in Dusty Petroleum Blue Merino, held double at the moment, and I think it really suits me, so I feel like the texture would look really beautiful in like a darker colour. The next pattern is slightly confusing in terms of gauge, but it does feature this really stunning texture all over it, and this is the Francesca sweater by Moroccan knit. It's not a very popular pattern, it's only got 28 projects on Ravelry, but I feel like it is a very versatile design. It ranges from size extra small to 3XL, which is not at all a very large size range. This pattern is designed to fit a bust circumference from 80 to 130 centimeters. The smallest size would have a finished bust circumference of 113 centimeters, and the final bust circumference of the final size is 145 centimeters. This again is a drop shoulder design with really large sleeves. I feel like they don't have any decreases, which I would probably change. I would perhaps turn this into a balloon sleeve sweater, so I would just do the sleeves as written in the pattern and then do rapid decreases right around the cuffs, and then just do the ribbing around the cuff like as short as the pattern suggests, because I feel like it would be a lot more user friendly. I don't really understand how you can wear like these massive sleeves on sweaters and not get cold, because like if you're like walking around, like wind gets in them, and I feel like they just get into everything. So it would just be a lot easier to wear if it had balloon sleeves, and I feel like it would add like a really feminine touch to this like oversized sweater as well. Oh, it would be such a cute design to knit. A thing that really confuses me about this pattern is the gauge of it. It says that it's a light fingering weight yarn held with a lace, giving an Aran weight yarn, which I don't know how, but I looked on the projects on Ravelry and they feature a very large range of different types of yarn. So I've got some yarns that I picked out that I feel like would look cute on it, and it's knitted on 4.5mm needles, so I don't know whether it is an Aran. I would just have to swatch. It's knitted on in 17 stitches and 35 rows. So I guess that does make it an Aran, but I don't understand how it becomes an Aran on 4.5mm. I don't get what's going on with this pattern. I was thinking of knitting this in Sandnes Garn Coos in the colour 4333 or the colour 8621. A Sandnes Garn Coos is a blown yarn made out of alpaca, but I feel like it would really lend itself to the drapiness of this design, and I feel like it would really suit the pattern as well, because it would really soften the texture of it, but you could still like see the texture quite well, like without a mohair. Another option for this pattern, which I actually saw someone use on Ravelry as well, is their Drops Lima, and I would personally go for the colour Fog, which is like this really pretty blue, like slightly dusty blue colour with like different specks of different blue shades within it. Pink Coos is like a very like raspberry sorbet kind of colour, but slightly more muted. I'm also currently in my green era, so the 8521 colorway of the Coos is very appealing to me right now. It's very similar looking to the Dusty Artichoke by Knitting for Olive, however it looks a little bit more muted. It does look very much like a mix of the merino and mohair because they are slightly different in colour, but the Coos looks very much like a mix of the two. The next sweater pattern, which I think looks very elegant, and it features a large amount of stockinette, but it also has a textured yoke and cuffs. This is the Smoke the Sweater by Knitting Skura. It's a sweater knit in mohair held double for like a very fluffy ethereal look, which really fits in with the texture around the like yoke of the sweater. I think this pattern is just absolutely beautiful, and I feel like it would be such a nice mohair sweater to have in your wardrobe, and it just really looks so feminine and elegant. It comes in 7 sizes ranging from extra small to 3XL to fit a bust circumference of 80 to 130 centimeters. It's a relatively good size range for such a small designer. This pattern only features 28 projects on Ravelry, which I think is absolutely crazy because it's just so beautiful. I'm leaning towards making this in a purple. I know, a shocker. I was thinking of either knitting this sweater in Knitting for Olive Silk Mohair in the colour Artichoke Purple, or I would knit this in Isia Silk Mohair in the colour 12, which is also like a very dusty purple but slightly darker colour than the artichoke purple, and I feel like both versions would look absolutely stunning, and I feel like they would suit me very, very well. One thing that is slightly putting me off knitting this design is the circular yoke. I feel like it wouldn't look quite so great with my wide shoulders, and I feel like because it's not massively oversized, it wouldn't like perhaps fit them quite so well, because I have had some fit issues with circular yokes, so that perhaps might not be a pattern for me. But if you do end up knitting it, please do let me know and tag me on Instagram, because I would love to see your versions of this. The next design is actually a lace jumper, and this is the jean sweater by Colibri by Joanna, or Johanna. I think the design is German, perhaps. This is a raglan sweater. I know, we're branching out a little bit, but it features a wave lace pattern, and the sample is actually knitted in 2 different colours featuring stripes along the wave patterns. However, I would personally knit it in 1 colour because I feel like it's a little bit too adventurous for me, though I do love the way the sample looks anyway. It's knit in the round, and I do really love the lace pattern. I've actually knit the peacock cardigan by Lena Holmes Hamza that really features like a really similar lace, but obviously isn't like in a wave pattern. I feel like the waves really add a lot of interest to it. I feel like it would look really cute with the hem as well being like a little bit scalloped or like wavy as well, and it features balloon sleeves, which I'm absolutely obsessed with at the moment. So I feel like this pattern is just so stunning. I would absolutely love to knit this as pretty much every single pattern in this roundup, but unfortunately I haven't got time to make every single one of them, but this might be like a really nice spring knit. This pattern comes in 5 sizes ranging from extra small to 4XL. I'm not sure how it's 4 sizes for such a range of sizes, because it's extra small / small and then medium / large, which I think is a little bit of a shame considering this pattern is so stunning. I feel like it would really benefit with more sizes to make it a little bit more inclusive for everyone to be able to make. It's a relatively popular pattern. It's got 248 projects on Ravelry, so I feel like people are knitting it anyway. The finished bust circumference of the sweater is 93 to 138 centimeters. This is not the bust circumference for the person, but rather of the final sweater, and the suggested ease is 2 to 12 centimeters. It might be hard choosing a size of this sweater, like to get a fit that you would like. However, the designer does actually feature a support email within the pattern page on Ravelry, which I feel like more designers should do. So I feel like you could reach out to her quite easily. There's quite a few projects on Ravelry, so you can see how the pattern fits various different bodies on there. This pattern is knit on 4mm needles in DK weight, which is just like a very standard weight yarn, so there's lots of options to choose from. I personally would actually go for perhaps just a DK weight yarn, and I was thinking of using Filcolana Pernilla in the colour Lavender Grey Melange, which I've already made a sweater in the Filcolana Peruvian, which is a worsted version of this yarn, but I feel like this pattern would really shine in this like dusty greyish purple. I think this design would also look really stunning in Filcolana Pernilla in the colour Granite Melange in number 812. It's like this desaturated melange colour blue, slightly greenish undertones, but I do think it's really stunning and it would really suit this pattern. Another option I was thinking about, if I decided to actually knit this with a mohair, I would go for Sandness Sunday in the colour Lavender Rose 4632, which is like this. The name of this colour really describes it quite well. It's a rosy but also lavendery type of colour, and I feel like it would look really stunning with knitting for olive soft silk mohair in the colour Artichoke Purple. I know there's been a lot of Artichoke Purple in this video, but I'm dying to try out that colour. Maybe I should knit something in it finally, so maybe I don't want to knit everything in that colour. I think because those two colours are so similar but have a little bit of a difference between them, I think it would add a little bit of definition and depth to the final colour of the yarn, so I think it would add even more texture. Please excuse their lighting difference, but the sun has decided to come out and annoy me. The next sweater features all over cables and it looks very, very intimidating to knit, but the final design is just so beautiful that I feel like I would be willing to go through the trouble of knitting it. And this is the Wishbone sweater by Veronica Lindberg or Kotova Kika. I think it's a relatively popular design. It does have 561 projects on Ravelry, so yeah, it's quite a known design, I suppose. I've only seen it a few times popping up on my Instagram, so I don't know how popular it is, but I do think it's absolutely stunning. It truly looks like a showstopper and it's just so beautiful. It's a drop shoulder sweater and it's knit in, I think, twisted rib all over, and it's cabled, so I do think it would just take a really long time to make. It also features optional short rows, so I feel like you could have it like bunchy up here if you like that look, because it's quite a tall neckline, or you could have it just like a normal fit without the bunchy uppy situation. Both would look really nice. I think the bunchy up moment here makes it look a little bit more like fashion and elegant. I think this design is just so stunning. I don't even know how to describe it because it's so complex, complicated, but at the same time very simple and quite basic. If I hadn't just knit my sweater number 15, I think I would perhaps be casting this on right now, maybe next year or the year after. I feel like I need to build up some confidence before I start making this, because the cables do seem very overwhelming on the twisted rib. It seems like a lot on this sweater. The good thing is actually it's knitted on 5mm needles in DK weight yarn held with a lace weight, so it's like a worsted weight, I suppose. It only has 5 sizes, but it does range from extra small to 5XL, and it has a finished bust circumference of 83 to 136.5 centimeters. I feel like since Kotova Kika is such a big design, and perhaps maybe there should be more sizes, considering that these are final bust measurements rather than like person bust circumferences. I think if I were to knit this, I would perhaps modify the neckline of this sweater. I think it would look a lot nicer with just like a typical crew neck, and it would make it a little bit more versatile. But then I feel like, because I have my sweater number 15 on the needles right now, they would be very similar. So perhaps not. Maybe if I were to knit this, I would knit the turtleneck mock neck version. I really enjoy like the very simple plain color of this sweater, so I think I would go for Sandnes Garn Double Sunday in the color taupe 2351, and this is like just like a brownish colour. I would hold it together with Knitting for Olive Soft Silk Mohair in the colour either oatmeal, because I do have some leftovers of it, so perhaps that would be a project that I could use that for, or I could hold it with the colour linen for more of a less mild version. And if I wanted to make this a little bit more of a coloured project, I would knit this in Double Sunday in the colour Evening Sky 6051, held together with Knitting for Olive Soft Silk Mohair in Dusty Dove Blue. I feel like those two would work really well together, and they would just look absolutely stunning. It would make this sweater so beautiful. I think it would also look really nice with the Knitting for Olive Dusty Artichoke, so that like the greenish colour, and I think Double Sunday also has like a green version that could also be an option, but I do already have a sweater on the needles that is in that exact colourway, so I feel like I couldn't just have two exactly the same sweaters that are both so complicated. I feel like it would really defeat the point of having these really beautiful like complex designs. The next design is another drop shoulder sweater, but this time it's a really nice play on texture is the Porcelain Damask sweater by Lena or Lena Holmsamsa. She actually has a very popular colour work pattern called the Porcelain sweater, which I suppose isn't for everyone because of the colour work. I personally love the way it looks, but I think the colour work really puts me off it because I'm not that big of a colour work person. However, this one features a very similar design, which makes it look like a porcelain plate, but without like colour on it. So it's just got these really stunning motifs. I think this design really plays with light because the designs, the motifs on the sweater end up looking a little bit like a very low contrast colour work, with how the light like hits the yarn. The fit of it is very, very classic, and it comes in several sizes ranging from extra small to 3XL, with final bust measurements of 91 to 149 centimeters. This sweater would perhaps look even nicer, slightly less oversized than in the pattern, so I think I would probably knit like the smallest size to make it a little bit less oversized on me. This is knitted on 4mm needles in a lace weight held with a fingering, just a very standard yarn combination, and I think knitting for Olive would certainly lend itself really well to this pattern. However, I have seen a yarn at Beautiful Knitters that I was just so in love with and I really wanted to try out, but I haven't really had an idea of a sweater that I would knit with it, and I feel like it would be just so perfect for this design. Is the Along avec Anna silk mohair and merino held together in the colour Reverie, and it's a very similar colour to the Knitting for Olive soft blue, but I think it's a little bit more grey, and I feel like it would really work so well with the porcelain sweater because it would really give like this porcelain plate vibe to it, or like a vase. I don't know, it's really, really cute. I love the way the sweater looks, so I'd love to make one. Please let me know if you've made one before and how you feel about this pattern. The next pattern is one I've actually mentioned previously on my channel in one of my like planning videos as like a very delusional knit, and yeah, it was very delusional. I still haven't made one, but I would love to at some point if I manage to get my hands on the book that this is in. And this is the Olympia sweater by Claudia Quintanilla, and this is featured in the book Memory Lane. That is the main reason why I still haven't cast this on, because it is a very simple like plain stockinette sweater, but it features this like keyhole design at the back with a ribbon going around the neck and tied at the back, which just adds like such femininity to the sweater. It also has folded cuffs around the sleeves, and I feel like these are such delicate details to add to the sweater that would just make it look so stunning. I think it's also a really versatile pattern. You can make this in a merino or a double mohair, just like this pattern suggests. Knit on 3.75mm needles, so I feel like you could perhaps knit this on 4mm needles and make it like a very simple stockinette project, and you could make it in a DK weight yarn, you could make it in a fingering held with a lace weight, or as the pattern suggests, 2 lace weights held together. It comes in 9 sizes ranging from finished bust measurements of 94 to 162 centimeters, making this a pretty size inclusive pattern. I think it would just be such a nice staple to have in your wardrobe. I was thinking of making this in the Isia silk mohair held double in the colour 12, which is the like dusty purple colour. I know, again, shocker, but I think any colour would suit this pattern really, really well. The purple would look really cute with like a purple ribbon, but it would look so beautiful in like a cream. Honestly, any colour, I feel like it would look really good in like a black or a dark grey. Just, you could make this in a pop of colour, making it really bright, just because it's so simple, and I feel like it wouldn't be too overwhelming either. So yeah, it's just a really stunning pattern, and I would love to make it in the future at some point. The next pattern is slightly different than one I would typically go for, because it is firstly knitted bottom up, and secondly it's knitted on fingering weight yarn on 3.75mm needles, making it a little bit of a challenge, but I feel like it would be a very cute staple piece in one's wardrobe. And this is the Jesper sweater by Julie Hoover. It's a really pretty, I suppose, satin sleeve or a drop shoulder. Design with diamond cables all along the body and just plain stockinette sleeves. It comes in 9 sizes ranging from 98 to 175 centimeters finished bust circumference, making it very size inclusive, I think, considering that you can just make this in various different like fits. The suggested fit of this sweater is like one with not too much positive ease, but I feel like it will look really good, slightly more oversized or even more fitted. Yeah, I've been meaning to make this for quite a while, but the fingering weight yarn makes it a little bit daunting. However, when I was at Beautiful Knitters in London, I actually found this yarn that I thought would look really nice, but I had no idea what I could make with it, and I feel like this would be the perfect project for it. And this is the West Yorkshire Spinners Exquisite Lace, and I would use the colour Portobello, which is like this really pretty pinkish purple colour. It's very muted but not like super greyish, which again is really pretty, and I really love those types of colours. Even in like a very basic like grey colour, the West Yorkshire Spinners also comes in the colour Truffle, which is like an almost black dark grey colour. The Exquisite doesn't come in that many shades, but I do think the ones that they have are really pretty. This is an 80% Falkland wool and 20% mulberry silk yarn. It is very soft, so yeah, I think it would just be such a stunning project to make. I think if I were to knit this sweater, I would definitely modify the neckline though. I'm not quite so keen on the 2x2 or 2x1 rib around the neckline and the cuffs in the bottom. I feel like it looks very chunky with the pattern along the body, so I think I would probably opt for either just like a normal 1x1 rib or even half twisted rib. I feel like it would look really nice with this design. The next design is actually a really cutesy girly spin on like a typical Aran jumper, and this is the Shine Bobble Sweater by Sally Knit. I'm typically not a big fan of bobbles, but I feel like on this sweater they really add, they make the cables look like little berries, and I just think it's really cute. This is a really cute oversized drop shoulder Aran sweater featuring like matching cables along the front and back of the sweater. Again, it really reminds me of the Moby sweater, but it's a little bit of a cooler spin on the Aran jumper. It's got these really cool diamond cables with cables within them and on the outside of them, and bubbles between them. It's just so complex, complicated, but it also has a bit of simplicity because the sleeves are just like moss stitch all over, and I do really like the fit of it because it's very like oversized, but I feel like the sleeves also match that oversized aesthetic, which I find with like these oversized sweaters isn't always the case. Like I find that the body is very big but the sleeves are just so tight, so it looks a little bit disproportionate, whereas in this design I feel like the sleeves are just so big. It would look so cozy and it would be so nice to wear. This is a Korean designer, so unsurprisingly this pattern doesn't come in that many sizes, and it actually doesn't say what bust circumferences the sizes correlate to. It comes in sizes 1 to 6. I mean, we've got other loops with 3 sizes, so I feel like this is still better. But yeah, I'm not sure what these sizes actually correlate to. Nonetheless, this is a really beautiful design knitted in worsted weight yarn on 5.5mm needles. It does come in English and Korean, so you wouldn't have to use Google Translate to knit this pattern. I'm slightly worried it might have some like issues in the English translation since this is a Korean designer, but I mean, I can't really tell because I haven't bought the pattern, but I'm very tempted to because it is just so pretty. I think it would be a really cute like Christmas sweater because it does have this like Christmassy vibe to it. And I think because this is a worsted weight project, Focalana Peruvian would just be absolutely perfect for this project, and I think I would go for the colour Old Rose 227. It would just look so good in this pink colour. Other colourways which I'm also leaning towards are Oatmeal 978, which is just this like a grey brown taupe kind of colour. Obviously lavender grey melange because that is just my signature colour at this point. Or Anthracite 219, which yeah might hide the cables a little bit, but I feel like it would still look quite cute, and it's not like a black or just such a dark grey that would hide them fully, so I think you'd still get a little bit of cable definition, especially in this yarn, and it would just look so nice. The next pattern is one that many people have knitted and is very popular, but for very good reason, because it's just such a perfect basic that I've been planning on knitting for several years now, and this is the sweater number 14 v-neck by My Favourite Things Knitwear. This unfortunately suffers from the same fate as the other loop sweater. It comes in sizes 1 to 3, which is again absolutely bonkers considering that this is My Favourite Things Knitwear. She's such a big designer that I feel like she should have made more sizes for this pattern, and it's very annoying on both sides of the spectrum. Nonetheless, I do think it's still a really beautiful pattern, and I would still be planning on knitting this at some point. Hopefully at that point My Favourite Things Knitwear comes out with more sizes for this design, because it is really a shame that it hasn't come out yet. There is an alternative to this pattern, and it's the Harlow Sweater v-neck by Kadri, which comes in sizes extra small to 5XL, ranging from final bust circumferences of 105 to 170 centimeters, making it a lot more size inclusive. However, this pattern is actually knit in a slightly different gauge than the My Favourite Things Knitwear pattern. The Harlow sweater is knitted on 4.5mm needles, whereas the sweater number 14 is knit on 6mm needles, which is something that really makes me lean towards this option, because it would be such a quick knit. I think especially that is just like an in the round stockinette project, and I think it would just be such a stunning basic. This pattern features a very boxy, oversized fit with like a nice v-neck, giving a little bit of femininity to it, and it's also got an asymmetrical shape, so the front is shorter than the back, which just I think is so cool. I really love how the v-neck as well is like folded over, so it's quite bulky. I think it really suits this pattern quite well. I think Sanders Garncous would be quite a good yarn to use for this. I'm not sure if it would be big enough for the 6mm needles, so I would have to think about that a little bit harder, but the suggested needle sizes is from 4.5 to 5.5mm needles for this yarn, so I feel like maybe I can knit the sweater off gauge in that yarn and it would still look quite cute. I would again make this in the colour 4333 or 8521, the like raspberry sorbet or the like dusty sagey green colour. They do also have a really nice grey 2390, which I feel like would make it a really nice basic, or their 1043, which is like a melangey lighter grey colour, and it would make it a really nice basic. Even, dare I say, 1021, which is like a very light, almost white kind of grey. It's got like speckles of a grey in there, and yeah, I think I'm leaning towards that one because it would look really nice over pretty much any top underneath. I might actually make this year. Who knows? I know I mentioned previously that I'm not a colourwork girly, but I think this sweater features such simple colourwork that it would work even for me, a non-colourwork girly. And this is the Nord pullover by Hannah Rimmen. Is this boxy, oversized drop shoulder sweater featuring stripes along all over the body and the sleeves, but the stripes on this sweater aren't solid colours, they're actually one stitch in one colour and one in another, interchanging, and they're like kind of like a checkered pattern, I suppose, but on a very micro level, just like stitch by stitch, and it's just on the stripes. It also has a really interesting detail along the neckline. I think it's like double knitting and then it goes into the collar. The neckline and the sleeves and the bottom of the body are also bound off in the contrast colour, which I think makes it look really cool, and there's such a cute detail. And this pattern also has matching trousers if one would like to knit those. I feel like it would be such a cute cozy set to wear around the house, although it would be a really big shame to wear it just around the house because it's just so cute. This pattern ranges from sizes small to extra large for final bust measurement of 102 to 140 centimeters, making it not the most size inclusive pattern, I must admit. This pattern is quite interesting because it's actually knitted bottom up and it features some interesting techniques such as 3 needles bind off, which I actually have never used before, but I feel like it would be quite cool to try out. This pattern is knitted on 3.5mm needles in DK weight yarn. I think you can play around with gauge for this pattern because it is so simple. I think I would make this in Sandnes Garn Pigment in the colours 2650 as the main colour and 2652 as the contrast colour. I feel like they have enough contrast to make the stripes pop. I think they're a lot lower contrast than the sample, so I feel like it would suit me a lot better because I suit more lower contrast kind of vibes. I think this pattern would also look really stunning in like a pop of colour in the Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino in the colour Artichoke Purple as the main colour, held together with the Dusty Violet as the contrast colour. Again, that wouldn't be quite so contrasty, but it would provide like a little bit of contrast to make the stripes pop out. Or if I wanted to make this in pink, I think it would look really cute in the colour Dusty Rose held together with the Plum Rose. I think the Plum Rose is again like a raspberry sorbet colour, and the Dusty Rose is just like the prettiest, dustiest rose kind of colour that I'm absolutely in love with. So I feel like that would be a really cute combination as well. I think a really cute final colour combo for this pattern would be the Sandnes Garn Pigment in the colour 8051 held as the main colour and the 7281 held as the contrast colour. Again, those two have enough contrast to make the stripes pop, but not quite as much as the sample photo, which again I think would suit me a lot more. I feel like both of those colours are really like slightly bluish greens, very desaturated. The 8051 is like a eucalyptus sage green type colour, and the 7281 is like a bottle green, I suppose. Very pretty. A colour that I don't think would suit me just by itself, but I think as stripes it would just look so cute. If you've made any of these patterns before, please do let me know, and I would love to hear your opinions on them. Were they nice to knit or not? And I would also love to hear if I've inspired you to knit one of these patterns and what colourway you decided to go for. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next ones. Bye!